Very welcome, Juan Pablo from Mexico, from Leon. Juan Pablo, you are part of what is called the war room in your company, a task force specially created to, let's say, survive this COVID era. Very welcome. We're very interested in your presentation. What has Flecha Amarilla done to overcome this crisis and to come out stronger, as we say?
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ryan. I hope we can shed some light with the audience on how we drove profit on these times. So we can go ahead with the slides. Yeah, so as John said, I'm Juan Pablo Martin from Grupo Flecha Amarilla, and I'm going to talk about the company's shift to technology that helped us drive profit in these times. So a brief intro to what the group is. So our company was founded in 1932. This year, actually, we are 88 years old. And we are one of the principal coach operators in the country. Before COVID, we were moving around 8 million passengers each month. We have in our fleet over 2,500 buses. And we have brands that are in the top of mind of our customers. We've been awarded by KPMG best bus line for some years. And as a company, we don't focus only on intercity bus, even though it's our core. But in this customer journey that Jan has mentioned and Ryan, we also have integrated different services and business units from express messaging, freight and packaging services, to even food franchises. You know, we think about that journey that our customer has when they take a trip with us, and we've been integrating these different business units, right? So next slide, please. So before going into what solution was, I'm going to talk about the actions that were taken by us. So as John said, the company decided to create a task force, a special task force, to try to predict the outcomes and actions that needed to be taken in order to stop the loss of due to COVID, right? We needed to shift our budget that was set for the year. We have to shift that to a zero-based budgeting. And we can see on the right-hand side this table that we took it from a McKinsey article in April, where they were also trying to figure out where this was going, how that recovery was going to come. And what this table tells us is, depending on public policy, on economically and on health, how fast a country or a sector could recover. And sadly, in Mexico, we have no support from the government. There's no capital being injected to our sector or even anyone in the country. So we thought we might be recovering, like we can see here in the slide, the center square or the one to the left, the B2, you know? And if we go to the next slide, this is an actual graph from our company, and it's just that. We had a big hit, and I'm pretty sure almost everyone's familiar with this type of graph. This is our companies, but I think it replicates in your companies. You've seen it in your monthly reports. And it was just a huge decline. Actually, our lowest point was on Good Friday. Good Friday here in Mexico is Holy Week, we call it. It's one of the biggest holidays we have in the country. And we were almost 90% operating of what we were doing or in sales from 2019. So it was a huge impact, right? And we try to forecast when we will get an operational income. And here, this was a bit naive. We thought we were going to be at 50% capacity by the 30th of August. And this was a bit far off. We are just now starting to recover at 50%. But at that time, that's how we thought we were going to generate income again, until we got to 50 or 60 or 70% from what we were operating last year. So if we can go to the next slide, with this forecast in mind, we had to take different measures to control expense and reduce fixed costs, right? So we did maintenance to our units to comply with our standards. Safety is one of our values, so we couldn't compromise safety, but we weren't doing some like minor embellishment details that we do normally on our buses. Our buses are super pristine, but now we might shift them or kick them a month or two to do those embellishment fixes, right? We could reduce, or we did reduce use of energy and travel expenses because we were doing home office, so it helped that. But also we cut a huge cost, which was giving snacks to our customers. It's a huge cost on our monthly statements. We eliminated completely. The customers understood that it was an action that needed to be taken. If not, we couldn't operate anymore. And at last, the last resort was restructuring, coding personnel. Our CEO, he's convinced, he knows that one of our competitive advantages is talent. And this is something we wanted to do last, but also COVID and this crisis was something we've never experienced before. You saw the drop on that graph, so we had to do it. But as you can see, none of these actions are digital transformation or technology based. And it wasn't enough to stop the bleeding, right? So next slide, please. So one of the actions that we took, and this is one of many examples that we took based on technology. So due to the restructuring in our task force, we started to think, well, how can we make use of this technology that we have to be more efficient? So we actually scan every ticket, even if it's on your phone or printed. We scan every ticket with a QR code. So before the crisis, we had a lot of staff or resources on the boarding process. Each bus had a boarding assistant where passengers check their ticket. So we had to reimagine this process. So it's a mix of process with technology, with efficient use of resources. And we actually not only cut costs, but it also helped us implement our COVID process, like safe guidelines, because it's a contactless activity, right? So it was a start, but it wasn't going to turn our numbers fast. We still didn't see profit coming until the late Q4. So next slide, please. So this is where everything changed. This is a KPI, an indicator that we revise every month, that is revenue over kilometer. So here you can see this graph that our KPI, the revenue over kilometers traveled on that month, that is almost 40% below what it was in 2019. But the two lines on the bottom, the slightly colored one is the kilometers, and on the bottom is the revenue that we're getting. So we have a gap that we are analyzing, and we realize that we cannot close this gap. Days go by and we cannot close it. We cut services and we cannot close it. We cut services and we cannot close it. So here is where we're all turned for the better. So next slide, please. We implemented a business intelligence tool that measures this KPI at any time in any of our service lines. So this KPI before our crisis, it was something we checked monthly, maybe in executive meetings, and it was looking to the past, right? So we were never going to close this gap. With this BI, we were able to see it every day and react faster, right? So we started making it smaller, but it wasn't turning yet. So what we did, we got together 4 different areas: operations, sales, planning, and logistics. And we created a model, a demand model, to reactivate our supply as the country started to open up. The country started to open up in May, June, but we already had developed this demand model, and that's being fed and renewed and perfected, but it was fed by our BI tool. The information came from our BI tool, and it actually helped us close that gap between revenue and the kilometers we were traveling, right? So if we go to the next slide, we can see that the gap closed, right? And we also bumped from the 30% we were below, we bumped it to 20% below by June. So we closed this gap, and that meant we had marginal operating income. So even though we were not operating at 50% our capacity like we thought we should to get revenue, this implementation actually got us revenue with less capacity or less operating capacity. And if we go to September, next slide, please, we actually reverted these lines, right? Revenue is above the kilometers we've been traveling. And the KPI, that is the cornerstone for our company, it's very close to what we were having in 2019. You can see by the end of September, it's almost near to zero. So this was like a huge breakthrough of the company. This KPI was our cornerstone, but we revised it every month. And now we're revising it daily. And it's what tells us on our demand model when to open up services without losing money, right? So if we go to the next slide, like I said, it not only helped us stop our losses, but we've managed to turn that forecast of maybe getting operational income in Q4 and bring it to June. So we have marginal operational income in June. Next month, our GOP, or gross operating profit, increased by 1,000% from July to June. And then it stabilized. Like if you remember the graph we saw earlier, the recovery is low and it has steps, but we've been growing. Right now it has reached a step, but we have operational income. So we are not bleeding money. We're actually gaining some money. There's still the financial part of it, you know, but this has given us hope to the future, because if we are doing this right now at 50% of our capacity, we don't have to wait to 2021 or 2022, where we might have 100% of our operations to have the same revenue. We might have 70% of our operations and have a bigger revenue than we had in 2019. So next slide, please. As a conclusion, digitalization is not a magic wand. It must be aligned with the company strategy. And the board was very clear. It's clear with them that this is the path we need to take, right? It's a tool that helps enhance the company's competitive advantage. It's this VI tool I was mentioning, we didn't implement it or buy it or develop it during COVID. It was something that we had before. The company, the strategy was very clear that we needed to shift that way. It just got accelerated during this crisis. And we found out that also interdisciplinary teams are the key to find the best solution to our problem. We used to work in silos, and right now with this technology, teams, and the talent of and the strategy of the company and the values is what helped us drive this profit at this time. Right? So that's it for me in terms of our slides. I don't know if there's any questions, John.
Yes, and indeed, Juan Pablo, thank you very much. That was very, very interesting. I've got two questions for you. I imagine that you've been talking about your intercity lines in this presentation, right? Did you do the same for your city lines?
Yes, that's right. So actually, this KPI, it works for everything. It works for our public transport companies. It works for our inner cities. It even works not with this model, but it even works with our packaging unit, the business unit. You know.
Will you continue to work with this KPI?
Yes, for sure, and we are trying to perfect this demand model. So as we open up, it gets smarter. We get better income per revenue per kilometer.
Right, I see. So the KPI and the tool you created is actually measuring your income and comparing it to let's say your costs but measuring is not enough. You have to take some actions to let's say improve the results of your measuring. What actual actions did you take to make those lines, let's say, switch positions?
Right. So as we talked in the beginning of the presentations, we had to stop everything, you know, like our services going out. We have maybe from CDA to CDB, 20 services, and we had to drop that down to 2. But as we saw demand coming up, we started to open up services, and this KPI told us, you cannot open that service, or you can open an extra service. Yep. So we measured it for some time, maybe a week or 2. And if it kept that revenue per kilometer, we kept it. Right. If it didn't, we closed it again. So what we are going to try to perfect is that opening and closing that. It almost tells us automatically, right?
I fully understand. So this KPI really influenced your decisions on what actions to take, what to wait for, etc.
Right.
Most interesting. Thank you so much, Juan Pablo.